Hello, hello. I already see Amber and Trevor and Brian. Hi, it's good to see you guys. I was telling Donna in the pre-live how I'm always, kind of blathering a little bit at the beginning to stall for time to let more people in. um, Donna and I are both on Eastern time. We were just talking about that, which is nice. I'm in North Carolina. Donna's just outside Baltimore. Amber is in Ohio. Trevor is out there on the West Coast. It's early over there. Thanks, Trevor, for being here with us. Brian is in Arizona, so they're a little bit on the earlier side of things. Amber's right there in the middle. I'm glad y'all are with us. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get us started by saying this. This is Tilted Bench. I'm Wyatt Jingist. With me today is Donna Knutson. If you guys don't already know Donna, you should connect with her. She's great. Especially if you know any writers in your life that need help. She is the person to talk to. So Donna, welcome. Thank you again so much for being here. And I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about yourself, what kind of coaching you do, and how you got into it.
So I am a totally an entrepreneur by accident. That's me. It's completely an accidental journey. Hi, everybody. I see people I know over there. So I came out of college and I went into television news, and I was a producer, not on the air, because I've always been a writer. If people are writers, you'll ask them, when did they start writing? And I tell people, well, I don't know. I mean, I wrote a play for my first grade class about trees and trash and picking things up for like Earth Day or something. And then I wrote a newsletter for my cousins, and you just do it. So there's no real start to it. But so I graduated. I went to television news. I had this whole career as a news producer. Telling people stories is what we did. Go out into the community, figure out whose stories need to be told, how that impacts your community, tell their stories. So I went from that to being a mom, wanted to spend some more time with my kid, came out for like 6 months. 6 months is all it took of walking her to school, walking her back. I said to my husband, I can't do it. So I went and got a master's degree. And I went back to the TV station and I taught high school students to put on a television news show. So then I was teaching them how to write and how to write for television and how to tell stories. And then I got a degree in teaching college composition. So then I was teaching people how to write. And somebody said to me, you should help people tell their stories. You should help them, small business people write books. And I just laughed. I thought that was the funniest thing ever. No one's ever going to pay me for that. But the next day, I talked to somebody and they said, I just finished a book. I need an editor. The day after that, I talked to a lady. She said her mother had emigrated here from Cuba and she wanted to tell her story. And on the third day, I ran into somebody and they said, I want to write a children's book. So in 3 days, I had 3 clients and I just started. I had no idea how to do anything. I just jumped in.
Wow. Hey, Chris and Sam and Paul have joined us. Glad you guys are here. Donna, so I have small kids right now, right? So like children's books been realized that had been something that was part of your journey. I didn't know that was in there. Do you still do that sometimes?
So my main clients are small business people who want to write their books to connect with their clients or to get their ideology across. Sometimes they write them because it helps them book speaking engagements, and it totally gives them a whole nother level of respect, I guess. So that is my main client. And then from the beginning, I had people who wanted to write children's books, and that's been really very successful for me as well with clients. And then the third client that I generally work with is doing memoirs. So those are the 3 categories I usually work with.
And were those all pretty organic things in terms of finding those as the kind of clients that you work with?
No, let me tell you, everything is organic. And this is like, everything is organic. I knew how to help people write. I knew how to help people tell their stories. Marketing, bookkeeping, uh, I don't know, just even how to start social media. All that's brand new stuff.
So you guys have probably noticed that this is a fun title, right? Investing in yourself and accidental entrepreneurship. Um, Donna, you said that you have a story that goes with this, and I love stories about accidents that go interesting places. So, can you tell us that?
Mostly it was the thing about just somebody coming up to me and saying that I could have this be my business and not believing it. And but I do know that after the 3 days when I had 3 clients, I just felt like that was the strongest message I could get, that I just needed to give in and go with it. And I'm a planner, and so giving in and going with it, just taking a leap, that was a big deal. And I understand that, when I work with people, that writing is very personal and it's very vulnerable. You're putting your words on the page, someone else is going to read them. So in a way, there's judgment involved, so that it becomes vulnerable. But I think jumping into this without, there was no business plan. I just took 3 clients and got started. That's about as accidental as you can get.
Well, one of the things I was having a conversation earlier with some folks about getting started with coaching and how all that works. And one of the things, hey Brian, one of the things that I think comes up for a lot of coaches is that you just want to help people. Like that's a part of who you are. I mean, it sounds like for you that you've got like you've always been a writer, and that you came across these
I think that's probably the case. I would say that it just I'm learning as I go. The one thing that I know for a fact is that I'm not meant to work with everybody. So I always try to talk to as many coaches who do what I do, so that if I run into somebody and they're not a good fit, I can say, here's a list of other people to talk to. And just as I learn who are my best clients, who I can help in the best way to get their book together. And I see, like, Paul had a question about the business card as a book. And yeah, I think, Paul, the issue with selling it is that it's just like, let's say you created a product. This is your brand new, swanky, beautiful product you created. But if you created this brand new, swanky, beautiful product and it's in your house and nobody knows about it, nobody's going to buy it. So the person who is the author is not always thinking about the fact that that's what they have when they're done. They have a product to sell, which means they need a marketing plan and probably they need a budget for marketing. They need a sales plan. They need people to sell their product. It could be them. It could be someone else. The sooner on that journey that people begin to realize that their book is actually a product that goes on the shelves and is for sale and has to be promoted, that is when you see people who are getting more sales of their book. Some people do it for money, but most of the writers that I've been working with who are in small businesses are doing it to reach their clients and up their kind of cred. And one of my clients totally tells its greatest story. She said, I'm talking to this person, I've known them my whole life, blah, 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 blah. And I write a book, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, you're an author. She's like, I'm the same person you talked to yesterday. But so she was shocked, and she called me. She said, I know it says that people are going to give it weight and value, but it actually does come with weight and value. And she realized that.
Do you find that many of your clients are surprised at that type of response, that it does give
Yeah,
that weight and value? Yeah.
because it's I think it's different. They say giving birth to the book, right? It's a process, but it's different because when you give birth to the baby, you got spit up and long nights and all that kind of stuff. When the book comes and you're done with your book party, it's this next day, just like any other day. So you don't necessarily feel that different. So when then you go out and you have that conversation and people react to you differently, it can be kind of surprising.
Cool. There, when you and I first spoke, which was however many months ago it was, this the piece of the puzzle that has to do with marketing. That when you do, like as you just said, you write this book now, it's a product, and you need to get it out there. Um, People don't realize that, and they focus so much on the process of just getting it produced that they forget about what happens afterwards. Do you struggle much with your clients and kind of getting them to catch on to that and to realize if they want the book to take off, they're going to have to work on it? Is that something you talk about a
Dave,
lot?
I would say that the main part for me is that initial conversation to find out what their dream is, because everybody's journey is different. If you're writing a children's book because you want your children to have it, or you're writing a memoir because you want to pass that information down, and that's a family item, then you don't need that. If you want to use it, like I worked with a chef, that's a business book. He's putting out a book because he's a caterer and he wanted to get his recipes out there and to people to know his story. And so we had a conversation at the very beginning about what's your vision for this? Do you want to be sitting, with Oprah? Do you want your book across the country? Or do you want to take over the city where you live? Well, because he was a caterer and that's where his business is located, that's what he wanted to do. So I was like, take the money that you would take on all that other stuff. Hire yourself a book marketer. When we're done, they'll have a whole plan for you, and you can be on like every radio station, every TV station, and every newspaper, and your book can be in every bookstore because you know what your market is. So it really depends upon what that person's vision is, how I have that conversation with them. And I do try and talk to them about preparing themselves for that marketing journey, but it's just hard sometimes.
Hi, Rachel. Glad you made it too. I I had not thought at all about the idea of having like the geographic spread that you might be interested in. And I mean, this is one of the things I was talking with Brian not long ago about how you need when you get a coach, you need somebody to help you ask the questions that you don't know you should be asking. And I think a lot of writers are out there, or people who want to write, that haven't asked those questions about what your real market is. When I think about being an author, I'm like, oh, well, you want to hit the New York Times bestseller list, right? Like, isn't that everybody's goal? But it doesn't have to be your goal. Like, you can just be interested in your local community. And Brian said this great thing here about basically what you were saying too, about that you're making these concepts transferable and that you're getting them out there so that you can give them to somebody else. I know one of the things that you say is that you help people write their story. Well, you have to think about who you want to tell that story to.
Yeah, who your audience is critical. And funny enough, a lot of times children's book authors are the last one to think about audience because they're like, I'm just writing a children's book. Yes, but they have more segments of their audience than almost anyone else, people who are writing a children's book, because there's the pre-readers who need the pictures that tell the story. They're the early readers who need repetition of language. They're the brand new readers who can do sentences. You need to keep your language in line with what they can understand. They're precocious readers who can read very well, but don't need the subject matter to go along with that. So the children's book audience actually has more specific parts to it than as you start to get older and into the other books. And I saw what you put up about the New York Times bestseller thing. So I have two things to say about that. So if your heart of the book is about telling the story and you write from that position, then you're going to get the best book that can come out of you. Now, when you want to share it with the most amount of people, then that's a journey. The way that people market things, like I'm going to put you on the bestseller list. So the New York Times list comes out and it's about sales, like number of sales, and then it'll tell you who's at the top of Amazon. So you can get on the New York Times bestseller list by being on the top of the Amazon list. So that's a numbers game. I'm not a numbers person, but it's a numbers game. So if you know you've pre-sold a certain number of books and you hold those to release in the first week that you sell that book, you can inflate your sales for that 1 week. And if you inflate it enough and you're in the right category, then you could get on the New York Times bestseller list.
Wow, I had no
That's
idea.
how people say they can guarantee that you get on the New York Times bestseller list. They don't mean you're
Oh,
Hemingway.
wow.
They mean we can get you to the top of Amazon because we're going to put you in this category that nobody ever publishes in. And you'll be the only one to release that week because our numbers say, because it's data driven.
Right, right. So that, I mean, that's basically just hacking the system, right? Like,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah. What do you find clients that are kind of concerned about that, or are most of your clients pretty kind of story driven and just focused on the work?
Lucky for me, I don't do any of that. I am all on the creative side. I tell them what I know, I tell them what I understand. I connect them with people who do that. That's like, I say, mine is like the joy side, and that's the money side. Then I'm going to help them create the best manuscript that they can put forward. I'm about the words. I'm about the passion. I'm about the heart. I'm about getting that story on the page that they want. Once that's beautiful, they can decide to self-publish. They can decide to go to a big publisher. I can give them advice. I connect with other people. I say, here's my list of folks. Go talk to them. But for me, I stay in my lane. I know my words. I know how to tell a good story. I know how to kind of coach people to get the best out of them. That's what I try and do.
Well, that's something that we talk about with coaching in different fields too, right? Is that like you have to know what you do, you have to know what you want to do, and then stick to that. You know, I've heard somebody say, this was a couple of months ago, I was in a conversation where they were saying that you have to pick your clients. You know, don't if there's someone who's interested in doing something that you don't want to do, well, then you pass them on to somebody else. But that's where you have to have that network of people to move people onto. Did you, when you were getting started and as you've been kind of going along this journey, since it's accidental, how has the process been of building that network of other people? Because you're on the creative side, but then after that, you're going to have to hand your clients off to some other folks. What's the process been like with building that network?
So it's two, there's two parts to it. I also, like you said, I look for people who do exactly what I do. And I look for people who do exactly what I do because you only come to a piece of writing with what you know, right? And so what you know and understand, I'm not going to be a good person to write a book about medicine, science, robotics. So I do always look for people who do what I do as well. And what I find, LinkedIn is a great place to go and connect with people and talk to people. I like talking to people anyway. So I do a lot of talking to people to just get that out and get that story across.
There's a fun thing here that Brian is saying, that your book becomes your boardwalk. It allows people to visit your design space in a perspective and or creativity. I mean, what do you think about that, Donna? Isn't that like what the storytelling is about, is kind of creating a space for people to join you in your own experience?
Writing is really personal, and we do it alone. And so he's right. When you write, that's that vulnerability piece again. You're giving people a window into something about yourself. Even if you're writing a piece of fiction, it's still a journey into your mind and how you think. And, writing for some people is therapy. Writing for some people is, very healing. It's a way to connect. It's a way for us to process and think. So it really does allow you to connect people and show them what your experience is, how that might be like their experience. It really is. It's a wonderful way to connect with people.
One of the things that's come up in the last couple of episodes here on Tilted Bench has been the importance of knowing yourself and having kind of that ability to guide yourself to also be in touch with other people who are helping you do that work. storytelling does seem, especially if it's personal, about something where it's really important to get that done. Do you, in the midst of these moments working with your clients, do you find there are points where you have to kind of help them see themselves and understand their own story a little better, or is that a lot of what you do?
I would say that yes, especially with people who are writing small business books, because what's the adage? People work with people they know, people work with people they like, people work with people they trust. So the book is an opportunity to do those things. And the more honest you can be about who you are, people will connect with that journey. Even if they haven't had your specific hardship or struggle, they'll connect with the fact that you have had a hardship or a struggle, or you went on a journey that they either would like to go on or have been on themselves. Yeah.
I
And
know.
yeah, it's coaching that out of people is hard because it's vulnerable, like you said. But I have one writer, and she was getting a little frustrated with me because we're going back and we're going back, and I was just kind of tweaking a little thing here and there about how to approach it. Just try it, just trying to ask questions and see if she could kind of think through it. Well, the last thing she gave me was one of the best things I've ever read, and she was dancing around her office, she said, but she stuck in there and she stuck with it, and it was hard. But what she put on that page, I mean, I already kind of knew what it was because I'd read different iterations of it, and it was making me teary because it was just so emotionally on target.
the the journey of kind of getting your story out there in a way that can help other people is
Mm,
one that's a pretty common theme with, I know, a lot of the folks that we've got in the audience here. I mean, Sam talks a
absolutely.
lot about how she's coming more and more to a point where she can share her own journey in ways that help people. We've got Paul and Susanna both here. They run their own live show that's coming up in just a little while, where they talk about moving from the feeling of being something being impossible to I'm possible, that
Mhm.
embracing this. And Paul, drop that saying you always have in the comments. Paul's always talking about your story and how it becomes the blueprints for somebody else. Saying here to show up that he's curious about your thoughts on a common piece of advice that he's gotten from nearly every accomplished author, which is to write everything in word vomit and then work with the editor. What do you think about that process where you just kind of dump everything?
So there's two parts to it, and again, it's really important for me to talk to who I'm working with. There are people who will plan, and planning will keep them from ever getting started. And there are people who will start, and they're so creative. This looks good, and then that looks good, and then this looks good, and they can't finish anything because then once this thought, and then they got to chase that thought, and they got to chase that thought. So the person who's going to plan, and never get started, they need to start writing. They just need to start writing. When people say write and don't stop, what they're saying is don't edit your work while you're writing it. Don't write a sentence and go, oh, that should have a T or that should have a period or a comma. That's not important. What you want to get out are your thoughts. You want to get those thoughts down on the paper. You do want to go back and edit that later. That's kind of what they're talking about. But for people who are like so creative that every time they get a thought, they have to move on it, then those people need to start with a plan, because then when they get a new idea, we can put the new idea here and then they can come back because there's a plan. So it really depends. It's a very personal thing. I really have to learn the person and their creative process. There's not one creative process. Everyone has their own. So part of that process, you're getting to know your client and they're getting to know you, is to learn what their creative process is and support them in whatever their specific process is.
Paul added his line in here: your story will become someone else's survival guide.
Every time.
Love
There
it.
is there is no time in which that is not true. That's absolutely the case. And to that end, and there those 6-month book programs, you always hear about those things, and I always get concerned because I 6 months is a hard timeline, and in my life, I don't have that kind of control over, because like you don't either. Because there's times you got to pick people up from school, you got to make lunches, you got to do laundry, that. So I would say, that we're actually having a trip to Italy with writers who maybe got to the end of that process and got stuck, or are writing by yourself. Like you're just writing by yourself. What does that mean? So that you can sit in a circle with other writers and share your piece of work. You get the feedback from them. You aren't alone now. You can get some bounce back and some feedback and get re-inspired and move forward on it. And those kinds of opportunities are really important as well. The book 6-month book things are good because they do create a community of people for you to come together. But the hard deadline is the thing that worries me sometimes. Ooh, fantasy, sci-fi. What's that?
I know we've got like some good stuff. I mean, and I didn't put up earlier, but Trevor mentioned thinking about writing about his restream experiences. I mean, I'm here doing live streaming, and like one of the things that I do is like regularly listen to stuff that Trevor talks about, because his story is becoming my survival guide, right? So this is anything you're writing. Those books are all going to be helpful to somebody. And I mean, fantasy and sci-fi is a place that I love to live, the sword back there on the wall, right? Stories can be memoirs, they can be instruction guides, they can be allegories. There's so many things that can be out there to help us.
Yeah. So what Susanna Dawn is saying is really true, is that was what Paul was talking about too, is you just have to go. You just have to kind of not stop and worry about if that sentence made sense. We'll be back to that. But in the time that you're going through it's coming out of your mind, it's coming out of your creativity, you just need to go forward.
Yeah. So we're getting close to the end of our time here. I do want to pause and let you tell us, Donna, what's the best way for anybody to reach out to you?
The best way to reach me is on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn profile. You go to Donna Knutson. I'm on LinkedIn. All my information is there. You can call me. You can email me. You can send me a text. We can set up a Calendly chat and find out where you are. It's a really personal process. So what I always tell everybody is, with me, it's like dating. Like if you don't have the right person, then it's not fun. If you have the right person, then the journey is fun, even the bumps, because you have support. So if I'm not the right date, I'm gonna try and find you the right date.
And Donna, your last name is Knutson?
That's how my husband's family says it. Yes, Knutson.
I have been saying it wrong, and I apologize. I should have sought to correct that. So if anyone hasn't seen it, Tilted Bench did a post this morning. I put it up. It's got a little bit about some of the programs Donna's running. It's got some links to some stuff. Go to the Tilted Bench page, check that out. You can see a little more info there. And Donna, one of the last things that we always do is I'm going to let you have the whole screen here, and you can share with us kind of a final takeaway, some thoughts, some nugget of wisdom that you want us to remember after this episode.
Okay. Well, my screen. Okay, so I would have to say that for me, the big deal is that the gatekeepers are now not. We can bypass them, and what I mean by that is, before there was self-publishing that people could afford, you had to go through a publishing house. So somebody was going to look at your work and determine whether or not it was of value. With the advent of self-publishing that is affordable, you can tell your story without a gatekeeper deciding whether or not your story is valuable to someone else. And as so many of you have said in the comments, that is, your journey is really going to be a roadmap for someone else, because someone else is either going to want to do the things that you did, be inspired by the things you've overcome, or understand them because they're going through them themselves. And these things, there's so many people, there's so many ways that your story will inspire and help other people. So my thing is, the gatekeepers aren't there. if you really want to tell your story and you need support, you need a cheerleader, you maybe need someone to keep you accountable, but you also need either help with structure, different pieces of the writing. That's why you seek out a coach. And every coach is not for every person, but that's what the writing coach is going to help you with, all of those elements, so that you can get your writing done to the best of your ability. And I do think that people can write their own stories. So thanks, Nathan.
Thanks, Donna. That's a great note to end on. We always love to just support that. Like, everybody has a story. We've got great folks in the audience here. Tell your stories. Find the help when you need it. Donna, thank you again so very much. Everybody else in the comments, you guys, thank you. It's always so good to see you. I'm glad you're here. I hope everyone has a great Wednesday, and we will see you next week.
All right. Thanks. Bye.